Welcome to Two Doulas and a Midwife. I'm Lisa and joined again with Danielle and Sharon, Two Doulas and a Midwife. We're having fun as always. We never stop talking. Even offline, we never stop, the three of us. So we want to share some more important information with you and lovely insights. And last time we ended off with what to expect, what are the signs of labor when your body is changing towards those last few weeks of pregnancy. And so today we're going to do the actual signs of real labor. So we're going to start with Sharon talking about when to call the midwife, because we have lots of signs and you think, oh, I don't want to call the midwife because she's going to think I'm so silly if I phone her now, or this can't be real labor because I'm feeling this and this and this. So Sharon's just going to give us an insight, and Danielle and myself obviously, but on how we know when to call the midwife, what to worry about, what not to worry about, when it's just time for a nice bath to relax, to help just worry about those Braxton Hicks, and seeing if they really are Braxton Hicks or the real thing. So first of all, we'll let Danielle just introduce herself and then move on to Sharon and talk about when to call you, Sharon, when to call the midwife. So Danielle, hi.
Thanks so much, Lisa. Again, so lovely to be with you ladies, talking about what we are most passionate about. And this is when things are getting really, really exciting. And I know as doulas and midwives, our phones have been left on since around the 37-week mark, and every little ping and every little message and vibration of our phones, we're checking to make sure our mommies are okay and waiting for that moment when they eventually call us. And yeah, no, it is so exciting. And a lot of parents may not know when the right time to call everybody, their team is. And that's why we have our amazing expert, Sharon. And so, Sharon, if I was just having just a few niggly Braxton Hicks that were maybe a little bit more intense than usual, would I call you? What do you prefer? I know as a doula, I like my clients to call me even the minute they think they're in labor, because then that way I can really prepare myself. I can get all my ducks in a row, have my bag packed and ready, make sure I've fed myself and my children, so that they don't leave the house in search for food, which has happened before. So, what do you like to do? When do you like your clients to give you that call?
Well, that's such a deep question and such an interesting point. I think that it's very important that couples go to antenatal classes because social media teaches us so much of the wrong stuff. Oh, I nearly said a bad word. So social media teaches us that, you have one contraction and somebody clears the table and throws you down there and the baby falls out. And so women live in a state of panic. But if you have deep, meaningful conversations with your midwife and she is talking to you about the previous generations that have gone by in your own life, who you are connected to, who you are descended from, what sort of body did they have, what kind of body did your mother have, did she live in the body that you live in, did your granny live in the body that you live in, who are you descended from? Because if we look at your grandmother's time, they would have had their babies at home without any thought beyond they are a woman, they are pregnant, and they're going to give birth to this baby. And whether it took them 6 hours or 48 hours or 72 hours, that's what they had in mind. They were going to be at home where they're most comfortable, where they can stay busy, and their bodies are going to release their babies. But now we live with such panic and such fear around birth that we have all this doubt. And so linked with that is, how will I know I'm in labor? And really, again, if we look at the grandmother's time, her plan was to ignore all physical signs until they were shouting at her and she could do nothing but pay attention to them. And that would be labor. That is how we would know we were in labor, because you can do nothing but pay attention to what's going on. If we look at what is it that we time, how do we time labor? We start to time it from when the contractions are coming every 5 minutes. And so you've had irregular Braxton Hicks, and then you've had stronger Braxton Hicks, which have become painful, but they're still well spread out. And you might have one strong one and a weaker one and a weaker one and a strong one and a weaker one and a weaker one and a strong one. And we count the strong ones. So there are things that you need to call your midwife for. And if you're attending antenatal classes, then we're looking at what those might be. I like to talk to my mums about what you would call the fire brigade for. You wouldn't call the fire brigade at 3 o'clock in the morning to say, I've got this little burning tissue on the floor. It might take a blaze and it might catch the curtains and it could burn the house down. And I may need you tomorrow or the day after. So I'm just giving you the heads up. I'm terribly allergic to the heads up. I don't want a heads up, because I am the midwife who has the bag packed already. My bag gets thrown in the car and off I go. And whether I have food with me or not, I don't care. I fast 2 days a week anyway. And so my body is very used to not eating. So my husband has always got up with me for the last 37 years, and whatever time of day or night it is, he packs my car, he makes me lunch, packs my lunch box, and sends me off while I'm having a shower. So whatever you're calling me for at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm coming. I'm on my way. I'm out of the house. So if you don't need me, and if you're not expecting me to respond like that, then I would rather you don't phone for nothing. Don't phone if you don't need me. I have had the phone call. I had a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning that went like, you told us that labor would accelerate if we got into the bath, and that if it's not labor, the contractions will spread out if we got into the bath. And so I got into the bath and it all spread out and it's all gone off. And so we're going back to bed now. And so we just wanted you to know that it worked. Whatever you said in the class was true. It's right. I'm not in labor. And so I'm going to bed. And, that's very nice. But if you consider that as the sort of motherly figure that the midwife becomes, I'm going to stay awake now and worry about you. It's like phoning your mother to say, I'm playing on the motorway. Don't worry about me. There's cars everywhere and buses coming. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'll let you know if I need you. Your mother's going to sit there and think, well, what if they got it wrong? What if it's going to start up again in half an hour? What if? So you stay awake and the whole world's awake and you're wondering, well, when are they going to phone back again? And meantime, they've gone back to sleep and they have a nice sleep in the morning because they don't have children yet. And so, they have not anything else to do. And so I would rather that there are 4 things that they call me for.
But sorry to interrupt you there, Sharon.
Yes,
but that's where doulas come in so well, because if you've got a doula, then you
Yes.
can always get hold of your doula first and say, this is what's happening. And then the doula is like the middleman and can say, you know what? I think it's time to phone the midwife, or look, just have a bath. Let me know how you're feeling. So we actually take that away from the midwives having that mama hen going on. Where doulas can say, well, just keep me posted, and then decide with the couple when to phone the midwife, which is really nice for families.
Yes. So there are 4 things then that I like you to phone for. But if you've been having irregular contractions and you think, oh, I'm beyond 38 weeks, I wonder what this could be. Because the number of people who phone to say, I've got these cramps that are coming and going and I don't know what they are. And you think, well, are you pregnant? And are you beyond 38 weeks? Well, what do you think it might be? Well, so if you're having contractions, and that means that the uterus is contracting, it means you're having cramp-like sensations that are coming and going. That is what contractions are. And to me, contraction is not a bad word. You can call it a surge, or you can call it a wave, or you can call it whatever word you like, but your uterus is contracting. And that means that it's going to get tense and it's going to go into a cramp-like sensation, and then it's going to relax again. And if that is happening in any kind of rhythmical way that is keeping you awake, you can't sleep. If you are unable to sleep, then you would want to get into a bath. And why do you do that? Because generations of women before you have got into a bath because that's where they relax most. A woman, when she's got menstrual pains or she's got a headache or she's just fed up or it's Friday night and, she's had a difficult week, she'll get into a bath. And to get into a bath, a woman sinks under the water and thinks, oh. And with that kind of physical response to a bath, her body is able to relax. And if she is not, therefore, getting in the way of her body, if she can step away from what her body is doing, that means she'll light a candle, she'll put her music on, she'll do her breathing in the bath, she'll fold a towel under her bum, she'll roll a towel up behind her neck, and she'll sink into the water. And then if the contractions are pounding, come in a way that she has to pay attention to them. And if they are coming every 5 minutes, then that is a good rule of thumb that she is possibly 4 centimeters dilated. And that would be the start of exciting times ahead. I am not saying that is the start of labor, because the partogram has changed and because the rules have all been thrown in the air and because we have moved all those goalposts. So it is not recognized 4 centimeters as the start of labor anymore. They're looking at between 5 and 6 centimeters as the start of established labor. But in the meantime, we know if you're contracting every 5 minutes and nothing is stopping it, they're not spreading out, they're not going away, they're not getting weaker, then you can get excited about that. So that would be calling me because labor has started and you have done your lying in the bath for an hour and you carbo loaded when you were in the bath. And why is carbo loading so important while you are trying to determine if this is labor or not? Because if you are in a state of hypoglycemia, then any kind of pain is magnified and exaggerated. If you have a headache and you're hypoglycemic, then you think you've got a migraine. And then you have something to eat and the headache goes away. So you have carbo loading in the bath to make sure that you're not compounding what you assume to be contractions, and meantime they are Braxton Hicks just finding their way. So that would be the first thing. Yes.
To interrupt you,
yes. Interrupt
for Lisa and I often, we work with gynecologists as well, and a lot of the time we have gynaes telling our parents that they want them to come in as soon as they think they're in labor.
Mm.
So would that...
You're saying when they're irregular contractions?
So often the moms, when I ask the moms, do they mean when you feel that very first contraction that's maybe a little bit stronger than the Braxton Hicks you've been experiencing? Or does the doctor mean, okay, labor, my contractions are now in a regular pattern? And a lot of them don't realize what, you know, the doctor is actually asking. And I think that 5-minute mark is such a good baseline, because you often hear stories of women saying, I was in labor with my son for 73 hours, and so it's so important to realize that, you know, she doesn't mean that she was thrashing around and writhing in pain for 73 hours, more that she was in this prodromal state for, you know, possibly, you know, 60 of those hours. And, you know, so it goes into the whole thing of what happens if you go to the hospital too early.
Exactly. And you know that's what's coming. Exactly. Because how could I not bring that up? Because that is about control. And it's about who wants to have control of this labor. And you know that the minute they go in, things are going to be done to them that shouldn't be done to them. And that's why I say to them, stay at home for as long as you can, until you cannot ignore this any longer, because that's one of the things that makes women successful. If you look at Santon Clinic, and I didn't mention any names there, you know, the women who are successful having vaginal births are the ones who arrive when it's too late to do anything to them. And so, yes, if women can understand that as long as things are irregular, then they can manage themselves. And once it is pounding and they cannot ignore it any longer, that's when they want to go in. Because this is why I tell them to acknowledge when things are every 5 minutes, is because it's very hard to tell a woman who identifies her signs and symptoms as labor that this is not labor. Because in this modern world, it's very hard to send a woman home because she's not in labor. Ideally, in the past, we would have sent her home and we would have told her, come back again when things are more dramatic. But in this modern world, it's very difficult because she feels so woebegone. She feels, oh no, how am I going to know then if it's labor? I thought this was labor and I'm wrong. So you can't tell a woman that she's wrong. You have to tell her that, yes, she was absolutely right to come in with these irregular and mild contractions. And then you have to give her a parcel of time to do something in. But if she's going to go to hospital, if she's not with a midwife and she's going to go to hospital when she's in early labor, she will learn in her antenatal classes, can take weeks. Early labor, we spoke about in our last discussion, is about a preparation of her body in order to labor. And labor starts when her cervix is already halfway open. She's halfway through getting this baby out. And that's when we start to time her. Because the more we stress her, and that's why the bath is so important, the more we stress her, the more we slow things down. The more she is aware, the more cognitive she is of counting and timing contractions, the more she's putting the brakes on. So the more she can distract herself, the more she can make sure she's not hypoglycemic, the more she can, in days gone by, should have done all the ironing, or she'd have made a stew for the family for the rest of the week. Those things are distraction, and her body gets on with the rhythm that it needs to get into in order to expel her baby. And that's why the second labor is so much faster. We can expect it to be half the length of time of the first one because she's distracted by the toddler. So distraction is an extremely important part of preparing for labor. So that is the first thing that I tell them. Call me at 3:00 in the morning. Don't WhatsApp me. Don't SMS me. I'm in labor. Do you do that to the fire brigade? Do you send them a WhatsApp to say, hello, that fire is taking off now and the curtains are alight. I'll give you a ring later. No, if you need attention, you've got to phone with the story. This is what happened. It happened like this. So if she's been in the bath and she's carbo loaded and these contractions are either getting closer together, more dramatic, more exciting, or are staying at every 5 minutes, and that's the time we want to start going in. The other things that she would phone me for at 3:00 in the morning is if she's ever worried about the baby, because she has been doing kick charts since 28 weeks and she has a relationship with this child. And if she wakes up at 3:00 in the morning, she's not contracting at all, but she just has a weird feeling about her baby, or she's ever got her maternal instinct telling her to pay attention to the baby, she phones me and we go in and we listen into that baby, because that maternal instinct, even if she's never been a mother before, she has a relationship with that baby and she can save her baby's life if that baby is in trouble. So if she's ever concerned about the baby, whether she's in labor or not, she will phone me. The next thing that she is phoning me for is if her waters break. Her water's breaking, if her membranes rupture, whatever you want to call it, if there is water running out of her body. So, of course, the social media will tell her it's like a bag bursting and she's going to go gushy, gushy, gushy. But of course, if women were going to make things that easy, it would be very simple. But water's breaking. Sometimes we have a lot of amniotic fluid and sometimes we have a little bit of amniotic fluid. So sometimes your waters can rupture and then you just feel damp, or, there's a bit of a trickle or something. And so it's confusing. So I tell them, first of all, to have a good sniff of it. If it smells like urine, then that is not your waters breaking. That has happened because you have not been doing your pelvic floor exercises and you have just peed yourself. So that you might want to keep to yourself and not share with your midwife. But if it smells like, I think amniotic fluid smells like heaven must smell. It smells completely unique and it smells along the lines of fresh laundry, really. Those lovely smells. It's something completely original. But if you have ever had a baby, that's the smell of a new baby. That smells better than a new dolly. So amniotic fluid can tell us many things. And if this amniotic fluid, it's going to continue to leak, so she wants to put a sanitary towel in her knickers. Can't believe you have to tell people that sort of thing. Don't wear her black knickers and then expect the midwife to be able to see what color the amniotic fluid is. Put a sanitary towel in the knickers, and if she's got those Doc White ones without the wings and the gel, then she can pile those up in her knickers like the princess and the pea, and she can be comfortable and it doesn't pour over the sides where the wings are, and she can get all the way to Oxford Road or Genesis or wherever she's going, and we can see the color of the amniotic fluid in the sanitary towel. We need to see the color because normal, healthy amniotic fluid should look like chicken soup. Chicken soup without the peas and carrots, that clear kind of sort of, what kind of color is it? It's sort of, it's like chicken soup color. That's a healthy amniotic fluid, and it's going to smell like something original. If, though, the amniotic fluid is dark, like pond water, that means that the baby has had a poo in their environment some time ago. It doesn't mean that the baby's necessarily in trouble or in distress now. It means that when she was walking in the park and a car backfired and she got the fright of her life, the baby had a sudden electric bolt of an adult dose of adrenaline and got the fright of their lives and had a poo in the amniotic fluid. It's now dissolved and it's stale meconium. So we would need to give birth in the hospital. We would need to check the baby's breathing apparatus after the birth. You wouldn't be able to birth in the water if you've got stale meconium. We need to check that the baby hasn't ingested or inhaled that amniotic fluid after the birth, because amniotic fluid is very sticky and can lead to pneumonia. So the other color that it might be is a fresh green, like bright green color. And that means that the baby is in distress now. That means that the baby, something has happened. Maybe the cord was around the neck when that water broke and the baby has felt the impact, or something has happened that has frightened the baby dramatically now. And so she would be calling from an ambulance. She would be calling the paramedics. She would be waiting for the paramedics with her bum in the air and her chest on the floor. And the paramedics would arrive and lift her in that position and get her on a stretcher and get her into the hospital and get her into the theater for an emergency cesarean section because the baby's in distress. So the amniotic fluid then tells us a great number of things. And it shouldn't smell offensive because, again, that would possibly indicate an infection. So we want it to smell fresh and clean and have a lovely color. And it just tells us that the waters, the protection around the baby has been removed. So ideally, we would want the baby born in the cowl. That means that the design of the membrane is to remain intact. The design of the membrane means that it is a protective membrane. Imagine an egg that you would boil. If you chip off the shell on the outside of the egg, the membrane underneath, that is the membrane that the baby chick was in, and your baby chick is in this membrane also. So the membrane is there to protect the baby from infection arising up from the vagina. And the membrane is also there surrounding the baby with fluid, so that when there is a contraction, the contraction squeezes the outside of this bubble of fluid and absorbs the pressure of that contraction away from the baby's body, and particularly away from the baby's head and brain. So the baby can be squashed and directed and maneuvered and twisted and rotated down and through the pelvis and out of that mother's body, with a membrane working like this, holding that water against the baby and protecting the skull and the brain from direct pressure of the mother's body. So we want the membrane to remain intact. And of course, we have no control over it if it ruptures spontaneously, but ideally we want to have it to remain intact. In hospitals, sometimes they will encourage a woman to have her membranes ruptured or have her waters broken. And they're going to try and convince her that it's going to shorten her labor or speed up her labor. And she might think, oh, that's a good idea. Let's speed the thing up. But in actual fact, research shows us that it only speeds up the labor by about 3 hours. And the 3 hours difference to the mother is colossal. 3 hours longer with a labor that she can manage, where the pressure of her contraction is being like a shock absorber, absorbed into the water, is much more comfortable for the mother, much more comfortable for the baby, far less fetal distress if the membrane is intact, compared with a shorter labor that the mother is not necessarily going to manage and is possibly going to need pain relief from a medical source because her contractions feel much stronger now because the water has drained off. So the most common reason for membranes rupturing without labor is infection. And the second one is the position of the baby. And that picture behind me that you see always behind me, that is an optimal fetal position. And we want babies to be in that position on the left-hand side, lying with their back on the mother's left-hand side, because then when they rotate through the pelvis, they have a round part of the head sitting on the round cervix and opening the cervix in an even manner. And not, if the baby's in a deflex position on the right-hand side, they tend to be deflex, meaning that their chin is up and they sit with the square part of their head on the round cervix like this. You have a strong contraction or even a powerful Braxton Hicks, and the irregular pressure on the cervix can cause the membrane to rupture. And so that's very commonly a first sign of a posterior position or a right-sided position that's going to lead to a posterior position. So ideally, again, it tells us that the design of labor and the design of babies in utero is very clever. It's a very clever design, and it's there to protect the baby. So membranes rupturing, I want to know what?
Sorry, I
Yes.
just want to know when would you make
Yes.
the call to do an artificial rupture of the membrane?
I
Because
never rupture the membranes.
you never do. Okay,
I
and
never
then
rupture the
so
because
because
the
I know
membrane's
you
never going
have
to hold the baby in. You know, if I had a mum who stood up in the pool and the membrane, her forewaters came down to her knees, this big sack of amniotic fluid, the head was up there at the os, but the big bubble of membranes is just beautiful. It's not going to hold the baby in. A membrane, it's a membrane.
Okay. Because I know, a lot of midwives and doctors talk about that membrane stopping that labor progressing, but it's not the case.
No, how could it?
No, well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you've explained it so beautifully. So thank you. Because I think, the go-to for a lot of midwives and doctors is let's just rupture the membrane.
Well, what would we ever do if we were out in Mongolia? How do they have babies? What do they do in India if nobody's there to rupture the membranes?
No,
How does
I
it happen that
hear
babies are born?
you.
And that's
Yeah.
why it's so important to
Interesting.
have these conversations so that that parents can make that educated decision, because if they trust their care provider, and they trust that their care provider has their best interests at heart, and so that if someone says I actually did my research and I heard on Two Doulas and a Midwife that it is not averse to my my waters being ruptured. It's not going to be whenever it happens is not going to make a difference to how my baby is still going to come, whether the waters are ruptured at the as soon as I arrive in the hospital, or just before my baby's head actually is born, or it can be that baby is born in the call. But I know Lisa has some feelings about waters rupturing.
I just like the yes, but also in a natural way. With the waters, the baby get a lot of good bacteria. Once that water is
of course,
ruptured,
that's a different conversation altogether.
Yes.
And that, of
We're
course,
going
is a
to
great
have that
concern,
conversation.
because if the baby
Yes.
is in the amniotic sac, then what about the seeding? Then yes, that is a great concern of mine. I do, yes, think about it. However, yeah. Anyway, the other reason,
The baby has their own story.
yes, exactly. So if membranes rupture, waters break, I would want to know three things. I would want to know, first of all, where is the cord? Because if this is happening before 36 weeks and the baby is not engaged, then that is when we can sometimes have the cord slip down in front of the baby's head. And the cord can come out of the body, the mother's body, before the baby. And that is a cord prolapse. That is the worst obstetric emergency that could ever happen. It's an extremely rare event. But should your waters break, you would always want to do a kick chart, make sure you're feeling movement since the waters have broken, and know that your baby is responding. Of course, the type of movement that you're going to be feeling is not the same as you would be feeling with the membrane intact. And so the fact that you have a relationship with your baby and you know what can stimulate movement, and that you feel movement as a result of that stimulation. For instance, you force yourself to have a piece of chocolate, or a hot chocolate, or even a cup of coffee. Or even if you were in any doubt, you would take a can of something fizzy and you would sit it on your belly and open the can, and that gives a baby a terrible and they respond. And so the fact that they're not moving through the water anymore is still going to exaggerate. A spoonful of honey will exaggerate a baby's movement, and you can tune in and make sure that you're happy that your baby is fine. But if there is a cord prolapse, if the cord does come out of the mother's body, then again, she'll get into recovery position with her chest on the floor, not her elbows, her chest on the floor, and even her knees on the couch, her chest on the floor, her bum in the air. And she calls for the paramedics, and she stays like that until they can get her into theater and get that baby safely recovered from her body. So that's the three C's are the cord, the contractions, and the color of the amniotic fluid. So my final question to her, if her waters break, is she contracting? If she isn't contracting, then clearly without that barrier to protect the baby from infection, we would need to stimulate labor. And in this modern world, we have 12 hours to get her into established labor after the membranes rupturing before we have to start antibiotics. And of course, Lisa, you will know that we want to avoid antibiotics as much as we possibly can to when she's in labor. And here she's so close to seeding her baby with good microbiome, and we're going to annihilate it. And so we want to avoid the antibiotics, and so we need to get all hands to the pumps as soon as possible to use natural methods to stimulate contractions. So she's calling me because she thinks she's in labor. She's calling me because her waters have broken. She's calling me if she's ever concerned about the baby. And the last one she's calling me for at 3 o'clock in the morning is if there is blood coming out of her personal regions. Not if she's sitting there like this at the table with a nosebleed, but if she has blood coming out of her personal regions, that can be the placenta, and that is never normal and must be seen by a doctor. So that doesn't mean a bloody show. A bloody
Yes.
show,
I was
if it's
gonna say,
mucus,
we
it's
did
going to be
discuss that last time, but I think
yes,
it's
and
always
you can play
important
with it.
to say.
Yes, but if it's blood and it's trickling or it's splashing on the floor, that is blood and that needs to be seen by a doctor. So she wouldn't ever ignore that, and she'd take herself into the labor ward and she'd reassure herself that her baby is safe and that her body is safe.
Fantastic. So now we're looking
So
at,
those are
ideally, we want established labors from, well, nobody's going to know their centimeters, but a good 5
yes.
minutes apart, those contractions, regular, and you've timed them so that they're 5 minutes apart and you know they're coming regularly, we can say, okay, you are in labor.
Because when they are 5 minutes apart, of course, they're only going to get closer together. And there are those mums who don't know that. They think that they're 5 minutes apart now, and then they spread out and they got to every 10 minutes, and they think that that is acceleration. And of course, it isn't. When you are steaming along in labor, you're going to be contracting every 2 minutes. And so if you are making a decision at every 5 minutes, then that's a positive thing to do, because you still have more progress to be made, and you want to be in the place where you're going to be birthing your baby, not delivering your baby ever, but giving birth to your baby. You want to be in the place where the end result is going to happen, not in the car or the car park.
And Sharon, can we also chat about, you know, we can often see that, you know, moms who are having contractions that are longer than 5 minutes apart, but those contractions are still really doing a fantastic job and are
Yes.
making
I was
that
going to say
circulate.
lasting.
Yeah.
You probably had a labor like that, Danielle. So I had a mum having her baby at home, and she was only contracting every 15 minutes, but they were really fantastic contractions, and we didn't need to do anything to that. We didn't need to stimulate her in any way, because it was very clear that she was having this baby. And the dad looked over to me. I hold a mirror underneath the mum so that I can see that head coming. I don't have to be poking about to find out what's going on inside her nether regions. And I was looking for the head, and he laughed at me and he said, you know, compared with last time, she's hours away from having this baby. And I said, I don't think so. This baby is coming. And yeah, she did. The next 15 minutes, the baby was out.
You see, but that is
So
the
very,
most exquisite thing about labor and birth, is that no two pregnancies and births are the same.
but that's the most
We have
exquisite thing about women. And that's why we
Yes.
can never, ever be the person that tells a woman that she's not in labor. It's the worst insult. Or to tell a woman, oh no, you're only 2 centimeters, nothing's happening here, because she will prove you wrong. And she can go from 2 centimeters to fully dilated in 20 minutes if you tell her she's not in labor. And that's why I would rather go in. If she thinks something's happening, I would rather go in and watch her and see what she's going
Yes.
to do. Yeah. I had a mum who phoned me once. She was also having a home birth. And she phoned, it was baby number 3 or number 4. I think it was number 4. And she said she just feels weird. And I said, well, get in the bath then, and I'll come over and just see what's going on. And she got in the bath, and she was all dreamy in the bath when I arrived. And she was fully dilated. And I just told her, Jules, give me a push. There's the baby in the bath. And that's the end. So not to make people people all stressed out about, oh my goodness, now I could be in labor and I don't know. For the majority of women, there is pain connected with labor for that very reason. The pain of labor is telling you your body is doing something dramatic and you need to be aware of it. You need to go and nest. You need to be private. You need to feel the power of your body and you need to receive your baby. Otherwise, if there was no pain involved, then babies would be dropped in Woolworths and, hit the pavement or out moseying about.
And that's
Yeah.
also one of the things that I love to remind my moms is the pain of labor. It's not like toothache or stubbing your toe. That toothache is telling you that there's something very, very wrong with that tooth, and your labor pains are telling you that your body is doing what it needs to be doing to bring your baby into the world. So, and it's always nice to remind the dads of that, because they often think to themselves, no, this is so not normal, and we need an epidural stat, and we need all the drugs and all the painkillers. So,
Dads often do, but again, unfortunately, this is why medical facilities like to have men on the labor ward, because a woman is more likely to have an epidural if her man is with her, and it's for his pain, it's for his inability to protect her or defend her or make the problem go away. And it's his discomfort that will push her to have chemicals that she possibly wouldn't have had otherwise. And that's why the environment for a woman, if she's got a hubble bubble toil and trouble thing going with a group of women, is entirely different. You're like, this is why the doula, this is why the doula was started in Northern Ireland. The doula was created in Northern Ireland to sit there in the corner of the room and knit and do nothing. Do not open your mouth. Whatever this woman does, do nothing. Do not move. Just keep knitting. And so women would come in hysterical, in pain and crying and shouting, and men weren't allowed in to support her then at that time. And she'd look up from time to time and see this woman sitting there knitting. And then she'd cry and shout and perform again. And she'd look up again, and there's this woman still knitting. And she'd think, well, this can't be this bad, because if I was in trouble, she'd have gone to get help. She'd have done something. And she's done nothing. So maybe I just need to calm myself and start my breathing and take control. And they found that women needed far less pain relief if you had a doula in the room. So there you go. There's a little promo for the doulas.
So, and I know Lisa, I've seen it so often where, the dads will kind of, look at us, she'll be having this crazy intense contraction, and the dads will look at us, and we'll just, give that thumbs up, like, yes, it's intense and it's crazy, but she is doing so brilliantly. And that was such a fantastic contraction. And you can see that, and also by the way that she's grunting and vocalizing, you can actually, you can often tell when she's on the cusp of being ready to push by the sounds that she is making vocally.
Yeah. Yes, and you don't have to go poking around to find out what's happening. But again, if we were to inform women that the pain of labor, we have to only equate to the pain of exercise. We cannot, as you say, compare it to a trauma. If you are going to break your leg, you had no idea it was going to happen. You're driving along the road, a taxi comes through, a red light, pow, your leg's broken. You didn't know that was going to happen. You're going to have to stay awake, stay alert. Adrenaline needs to pump. You've got to get hold of your paramedics and get your life saved. It's just drama. But if you are heading for labor, you've got 9 months to think about it, 9 months to prepare for it. You've got some kind of idea. You don't have a what is it called? We call it an estimated due date. Some people call it something else, like, the bus timetable, the child will be arriving on this day. But no, if you have an estimated due date, then from 38 weeks to 41 weeks, that sometime in that quadrant, your baby will be triggering your labor. And so you've got the opportunity to practice with your breathing, practice with your exercise, practice to be fit enough to labor. And so I explained to my mums that if you imagine that you have planned, I've got a big field outside my house and people run there, that if you imagine that you are just deciding to get up in the morning and you're going to get your running shoes on and you're going to get down to that field and you're going to go 10 times around that circuit. But you wake up in the morning and you think, oh no, yuck, it's cold and my duvet's all cozy and I don't want to go. But then you think, no, I promised myself I better just get my shoes on and I'm going to go down on the field. And you get out on the field and your legs are going and you're thinking, oh, yuck, 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 hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it. But then you start to get into a rhythm and your legs start to warm up and you start to take off and you're not feeling the pounding of your feet anymore and you're breathing rhythmically and you're exercising your muscles rhythmically. Everything's flowing together. And before you know it, you're 9 times around the field. You think, no, I could just do another 5. It can't be the end yet. Because you've been producing endorphins in that time and your endorphins have been separating your mind from your body and sending your mind off somewhere else, and you've been thinking of all the ways you can fix the world and all the problems in it and what do you need to cook for the dinner and what's going to happen in the children's lives, and that's endorphins. So with trauma pain, you only have adrenaline. But with the pain of labor, like the pain of exercise, and this generation goes and exercises for fun. They do things like bungee jumping for a laugh, and they do those sweat camps and boot camps, and they do whitewater rafting just to see how much more can I take and what can I put myself through. And yet labor, they're terrified of it. And yet it is one of those things that is a glorious, most fantastic, most wonderful thing that a woman can experience. If we were to advertise it like that, imagine what would happen.
Our population would double. Ladies, this was wonderful. Thank you. I'm very excited. I love the build up, that day of the labor starting and getting that call and going to meet moms while they've got that nervous energy of excitement and fear and I don't know what I'm doing and Lisa, help. But it's wonderful. It's the most exquisite experience and I loved every one of my labors so much. I adored being pregnant and giving birth. It was very special. So we're going to go on to then birthing next week. And, to the different types of birth, what your choices are, informed decisions to make. And then the next, after that, we're going to do the importance of skin to skin. And that's where I shine. That's when the microbiome comes to life. But we'll do all of that next week. Please remember, lovely listeners and viewers, to like and subscribe. We really are excited to bring all this information to you, and we would love everybody to be aware of this and just listen in and make those informed decisions and know what you're going into and what to expect. And it's just exciting and wonderful. And all our email addresses are scrolling along the bottom all the time during the episodes. Please get hold of us if you need anything answered. If you're exploring to have a doula or you need a midwife, Sharon, Danielle, and I will answer all your messages and hopefully bring you to a beautiful, beautiful birth. So thanks, ladies. Yeah, lots to come from doulas, to doulas in a midwife. We are so excited. There are so many things in the pipeline, and we can't wait to share everything with you. So we will see you next time, and enjoy all these podcasts. Just listen, learn, and love. So, ladies, thanks so much. Any last
Thank you.
words of wisdom?
Oh, thank you, ladies. Yana, this is just, it's getting so exciting, coming to D-Day birthday. And I'm looking forward to sharing some doula secrets next week on how to manage that pain. We talk about the pain, and I'm really excited to share some secrets with our moms, because as doulas we've got lots of tricks up our sleeves, and I'm really excited to dig deep into that, and just looking forward to hearing everybody's insights next week. It's going to be very, very exciting and interesting.
Good. Thank you. Sharon?
Thank you. I've said enough.
Well, lots of love, everyone. Blessings, and we'll see you next time.
You.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.